This is one of the most important weeks of training, folks. And if you're not putting a week of training like this every once in a while in your training block for whatever race, whether it's 100 miles, 50K, marathon, half marathon, you are seriously missing out on some gains. We'll go into what this amazing training stimulus that you can put in that I think is one that is not intuitive, one that doesn't seem like it would help, but we'll explain why it'll help. Before we dive into that, let's get out on today's run. It's Tuesday, December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve. We're out here just outside of LA in California visiting some in-laws, or I should say my in-laws, my wife's parents. And we're here for the holidays. Gloomy day outside. There's going to be a crap ton of rain this week, so we're going to be battling some conditions and elements out there. But today's run is just super easy. It is a 1 hour and 30-minute run. Very easy recovery. I'm thinking 2 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of effort and intensity. And we're going to take it nice and easy today because we put in a lot of work last week. And this is the kickoff to, again, one of the most important weeks you can have in a training block. So we'll explain what that is, why it is. We'll go through the week by week and why you should be adding this kind of week into your training to help you level up. Slam some caffeine, gonna get some carbs in, and then we're just gonna go out for a nice easy run. So let's go get it and see what this week has in store, baby. And let's have a holly jolly run today. It's pretty gloomy out here. Look at that. Supposed to get like 4 freaking inches of rain or something tomorrow on Christmas Eve, and then like Christmas Day is supposed to get like another like 2 inches in Southern California. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. We might have to be on some treadmill action and pivot and adapt, but that's okay because this week, again, is an important week, and you might be wondering why I'm holding out is because we're having the anticipation, right? But I guess before we get started on this nice 1.5 hour run, recovery run that is, I'm going to take some carbs. Nothing like the smell of gel in the morning, huh? Breakfast of champions. Anyways. All right, easy 10 miles today. Got a handheld. I always love a good handheld day. You know, it is nice and overcast, easy run. Probably not going to sweat that much, not going to need much water. So, but I always say, make sure you carry some water at all times, even if it's an easy run. Man, you don't want to be dehydrated. It just stinks. Look at that. I think the rain's going to start today, too. So, we're getting out here before the rain. And let's go get this thing. Nice and easy. Here we go. All right, 3 miles in on this recovery. Let me tell you one thing. The art of the recovery run is taking it easier than you think. And let me just break it down into pace concepts so like we can kind of see the difference between each of the runs. So if we look at the easy runs that I've had earlier this week, my pace was anywhere from like 8:20 to 8:50. Today on my recovery run, 9:50. That's intentional. Super easy, nothing to it, just shaking it out. Even to give some context, when I was doing those steady state intervals, which are a 4 out of 5 out of 10 on the effort scale, I was hitting those at like 6:55. This is like a low 2. So, and if you're unsure if you're going too hard or too easy, I mean, you always want to err on the side of going a little bit easier on these recovery runs because the point is to recover. Now, another thing that also I always like to think about is like, all right, well, maybe Joe, this just applies to you, just your running style and everything, but I always think about this. Eliud Kipchoge, who once held the fastest marathon time ever in the history of the world, right now is the current person who has ran the fastest marathon who's alive. Rest in peace, Calvin Kiptum, by the way, who has the record. But anyways, I digress. His marathon world record pace was like in the low 4s, and he runs his recovery runs at about like an 8:30. Think about that. That's almost double
his marathon pace, right? So even the greats do it. Even the pros do it. That is one of those lessons where I think the big thing we got to have with not just recovery runs, but what we're going to talk about this week in general is putting that, you know, I don't really want to say ego, but I guess if I'm just being honest, like really is that ego of like needing to continue to push hard even more and go and go and go and go and go, and then just say no. Well, I think the discipline move here is to recover, and it is to make sure the body is feeling strong and has the time to repair and adapt and recover, right? Like that sometimes is the harder thing to do and the more disciplined thing to do. And I get it, it's hard, it's tough, we want to rip roar, but I promise you, like once you see the benefits, then you get hooked, and that allows you to go harder on the days where you need to go hard and make the most progress. Put the ego to the side on the recovery runs. Go nice and easy, slow. The point is to recover and take it nice and chill. Also, looks like there was a race here, mile 10. Well, let me tell you, we're on mile 3.5, so not indicative for us, but let's finish up this recovery run. All right, run done, about an hour and a half, 10 miles, super easy recovery pace. So let's go into why this week is so important, why you should be including a week like this, or else you're leaving gains on the table. But first, let's go eat, let's go shower, let's get all ready for the day, and let's dive in for another week of training, baby. Let's go. Western States week number 4 of training in the books. We're documenting the whole process from now until Western States 100 miler, which is the race we're training from. So we're documenting everything, including this very important week. So let's get into the day, let's get into the week, and let's take you through it.
So in the beginning of this video, I said that this week was one of the most important weeks when it comes to training. And I say that for many different reasons, right? Not just because we need to recover, and not just because we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break after we've been pushing and pushing and pushing, but deload weeks are actually the source of how you make progress as an athlete when you are training. And the reason why we do a deload week is because we let the adaptations sink in from all of the work, the workouts, the volume that we have been doing over the weeks to settle in. And this is not just a hokey push for recovering more and, giving a push in recovery. This is a crucial step that you need to do to start to make progress. Because let me tell you a story about when I started to really start ultra running for the first time. And I didn't know what I was doing when I first started. This is many, many years ago, 8 years ago. And I started to run, and basically, I thought that the answer was to just keep doing more and keep building and keep progressing, right? Now, don't get me wrong, progression is good. When you're going in a build phase, you need to progress from week after week, whether it's adding more volume, adding more intensity, make your long runs longer, right? Each week should be progressively more challenging than the next in a build, because what you're doing is stacking on the stimulus, stacking on the stressors, and you are forcing your body to get better by doing more work, right? So when I was building for my very first ultramarathon, I was like, all right, I'm going to keep progressing. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep building. And I build and build and build and build and build and build and build. And I never, ever took a deload week. By the time that I got to the taper of my ultramarathon, I was wiped. I was exhausted. And then the thing that was just really weird was I never really felt like I was making a lot of progress in my training. I felt like my paces were stagnating, and in fact, probably getting a little slower. I felt like my body was just more achy as opposed to being stronger. I felt like my energy levels were a lot lower as opposed to being more pepped up and, energetic out there. And I was wondering, I'm doing all this training, I'm doing all this building, like what the heck is going on? And that's when I started to dive into the physiology a lot more and saw that the reason we have deload weeks, again, is not just to make sure we're feeling fresher, stronger, all those things, but all of that training does not actually materialize unless you take a deload week. And here's the physiology behind it. The physiology behind that is, think about training in a way of kind of like adaptations of survival, right? So when you train, what you're trying to do is you're trying to stress your body out by putting on more load, more work, more stimulus relative to the amount that it can handle, so that your body forces itself to get stronger because it essentially thinks it's going to die. right? Our bodies are incredibly resilient, and what we do is when we put it through something very stressful or something that is higher than the load that it can take, it sends a signal to our body that says, hey, if we don't keep this up, then we are going to die. Like, I know it sounds extreme, but that is the literal biological thing that is going on in your body and the message that you're sending when you are putting on more miles and running longer. So for example, if you are increasing volume week after week after week, you're sending a signal to your body to say, hey, if we don't get stronger as the mileage keeps building, we are going to die out here. So we need to get better, we need to get stronger, and we need to do all these things, right? Now, what is exactly happening in training though? What's actually happening in training is we are actually making our body weaker. We are breaking down the muscle fibers, we are taxing our aerobic system, we are putting our nervous system under stress, right? We're doing all these things in training and we're actually getting weaker. So the analogy that I always like to think of, because it's a lot easier to think about, is when you're lifting weights, right? When you're lifting weights, what you're actually doing is you're actually tearing the muscle when you are lifting those weights. And so that muscle is in turn getting weaker. The same thing is happening when we're doing running training, right? Yes, of course, right? Like our muscles can get damaged in our legs and stuff, but the same goes true with our aerobic system if we're trying to get faster. The same goes true with our energy levels, everything, right? Like we are breaking it down. Here's the thing. In order to make that progress, our body needs the time to adapt and recover and rebuild in those periods where the breaking down is happening so that it can come back stronger. And what science and research and studies show is that the best way to accelerate this process is to lay off the load, lay off the training, lay off the impact that you're putting onto your body for a week just by a little bit, not a lot, so you can let that body accelerate in those changes. Because the gains are not made in the training, right? Again, you get weaker when you train, but when you actually take that pullback period, it gives your body some time to rest, repair, recover, rebuild, so that you come stronger out of it. I always think of a really famous graph that I'd like to show all my athletes, right? Because it's a very normal thing when you're going into week after week of building. It is normal to get worse before you get better because you are breaking your body down. But what happens in this graph is that you are going to train. And as you train, your performance is actually going to dip. And then when your performance dips, that's the point where you usually want to do a deload week, where you pull back your volume from anywhere between 20 to 30% of your normal load, or even 40% if it's a really, really heavy load of work that you're doing. And in that pullback period, what you're doing is you're giving your body time to rest and repair so that when your fitness goes up, you not only recover back to where you were before, but you actually go higher because now your body is giving time to adapt and recover and get stronger. So once I learned about this concept, I was like, I need to implement this ASAP. So when I trained for my next ultramarathon, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this process. I'm going to go through and I'm going to build for 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks. And then I'm going to take a deload week and just give my body time to rest and recover. And from that time period, I was able to take my easy pace from 10 minutes per mile down to 8 minutes per mile in a span of 4 to 5 months just by doing this deload method. I was also doing other things as well too that we'll cover in this entire training series as well too, because that was a very, very pivotal hallmark of my training too. But I truly believe that the biggest part was the deload week, because what I would see is that I would be building, sometimes seeing some performance declines, sometimes, feeling a little weaker. Then I would do the deload period. And then in that week after, I would see the paces start to snap back to the top, which was awesome. So I knew that deload week was working. So if you want to make progress, you have to do a deload week. Now, what are the guidelines for a deload week? First of all, I want to dispel a notion, right? It is a very common notion that we have to build for 3 weeks and then deload 1 week after all the time. That is actually not true. In fact, you can go up to 6 weeks before you take a deload week. 6 is usually my max because after that point, it starts to get into the territory of a little risky of overdoing it. But here's how I gauge it. First of all, I always say after 3 weeks, you want to monitor how you feel. If your paces are significantly declining, if you're feeling more beat up, if you're feeling like you're getting some aches, niggles, pains, if you're feeling really tired, then it's probably time to take a deload week. But if your paces aren't dropping, if your paces are improving, if you're feeling excellent, if you're feeling like you can handle another week of building and you're honest about that, then build for another week, right? And go all the way up to, 5 weeks or 6 weeks if you can, and then deload from there too. But again, if you face any of those things that I mentioned before, that's probably the time to deload it. Now, I do have some harder rules that make it a little easier. If you're in a speed phase doing really high intense workouts, I tend to keep the deload period to actually 3 weeks And that's usually pretty strict. Sometimes I'll push it to 4 if the athlete's absolutely crushing it, or if I'm crushing it as well. And I say I'm crushing it, meaning like because I coach myself too. But nonetheless, like I usually like to keep very, very high intense speed builds to a 3-week period. And the reason for that is because speed builds are really hard on the body, they're really hard on the nervous system, and you're going to need more recovery time for those kind of sessions. And the lower the intensity that you're focusing on, so think your endurance blocks where you're doing tons of volume, low intensity stuff, you can be more inclined to push towards that 5 to 6 week period, as I was mentioning before. All that being said, that's how you kind of structure the deload weeks, and you don't have to do it from a 3-week build and then a 1-week recovery. If you are unsure, I tend to always say, hey, just take the recovery. It's always best to err on the side of a little bit more caution than to push yourself over the edge. And the more that you train, the more that you go through this process, the more you understand your body, the more you understand when it's getting close to the breaking point, the more you understand the signals that are going to read, hey, this is too much, or hey, this is just general fatigue, right? But deload weeks are super important. It's funny because, you know, in a lot of the content, the podcasts, the videos, all the things that I do, recovery and stuff usually gets the least amount of click and listens and views. But the reality is this is the most important part, right? I always think about Killian Korth, who is a coach on our team, and he is the Triple Crown record holder of 200s, or the record holder of the Triple Crown of 200s. He said that a big part of his success in a 4-hour interview that we did with him, which I'll link, you know, over here too. He said one of the biggest things was actually doing less in his training, and not from the standpoint of doing less, like less work, but being able to give himself time to recover, right? And that's why deload weeks can be so, so important. So that's why we took it this deload week over here, and this week we're already seeing the benefits. I mean, I'm seeing my paces already get faster to where they were before. I'm starting to feel a lot better. I'm starting to feel a lot stronger. And so these deload weeks are incredibly important to do so, especially when your training is picking up into the heat of things, which ours is as well too.
All right, it's Christmas Eve. It is pouring rain outside, insane flooding, nuts in LA, which is crazy. So we're gonna do a run on the treadmill today for safety reasons. And it's gonna be 1 hour, hour and a half, easy with some strides at the end, 4 to 5 strides, nothing to it, super, super easy. And we're heading on the good old treadmill. I also got a Santa hat and a donut because I'm making a wheel. It's gonna be funny to do this in public, but yeah, we're gonna hop on the treadmill and just go for it. Let's go. All right, so on the treadmill today, which it's winter for a lot of people here, and I always like to say, do not fear the treadmill. I know it can be really boring, I know it can be really tough, but 2 things. Number 1, it's good mental practice because you got a lot of monotony, and in these ultramarathons, there's a ton of monotony. You're gonna be running for a long period of time, and it's gonna be hard to, you know, keep mentally locked in sometimes. And so to be on the treadmill is a really good tool to practice being comfortable in the boredom, being comfortable with the same old stuff. And that's a skill that you need to hone in for an ultramarathon. So I always think about that. And number 2, I always think about this allows you to enjoy the race environment, the trails outside a lot more once you do get into it after a treadmill session. And the third thing, I always say, like, going on a treadmill is not going to diminish your training significantly. A lot of people reach out to me when I coach them and they say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I ran on the treadmill today, couldn't get out on the trails. And I'm like, it's okay, you're getting into work. And if you're getting into work inside when it's not safe outside to run on the trails, like right now with all the crazy rainy weather, if I ran on the trails, it's probably pretty dangerous. So it just matters, are you getting it in, are you getting it done? And fitness is king. So whether you're getting in that fitness building outside of the trail or inside of the treadmill, you're getting in that training that is building that fitness. So always something to keep in mind. So we're going to be out here for about 90 minutes, nice and easy. And then we're going to throw in some strides at the end. And then we're going to do a little strength session as well, because we're here at the gym, makes it easy. And then we're going to go celebrate Christmas Eve. That's what's next, baby. All right, just finished up on the treadmill, hour and a half with 10 miles total, a little over 10 miles, like 10 and a half, and then 4 sets of uphill strides. Man, those uphill strides are great. In the recovery period, you definitely want to take down intensity. So when you are doing a deload week or recovery week, you do want to take down the intensity. Now, to the degree of how much intensity you take down is going to depend on what phase you're in. since I'm in the base building phase, pretty much no intensity at all. However, I do suggest at the very least keeping in one session of strides. That will allow your body to also continue to keep VO2 max sharp, keep your top end fitness sharp, and overall have your like neuromuscular capabilities to go faster stay intact. I mean, a lot of the science and the evidence shows that even just doing one set of 4 to 5 high intensity strides for 20 seconds once a week can maintain your VO2 max, maintain your top end speed, and maintain, you know, that freshness and pop in your legs that you need when you're going faster. So when you're in the deload week period, always suggest at least keeping one set of strides. If not, then maybe you're doing like one steady state, light tempo, light VO2 max work. Again, it depends on what phase you're in, but since we're in the base building phase and not doing much intensity, we're just gonna kind of stick to strides. So anyways, hopped off the treadmill, do some deadlifts, some step ups, some calf raises, band work, get those muscles nice and strong before a good Christmas Eve here today in rainy SoCal. So let's get it.
It's 5:36 a.m. Christmas morning. Morning was all calm. I don't know what the Christmas verse is. I'm trying to like do like a Christmas version of, or running version of the Christmas thing. I don't know. It's early. I'm tired. I still need caffeine, but it's Christmas morning. House is still all asleep. As you can see, we got the rain jacket on, the John G. rain jacket, because we're going for a run before everybody wakes up to open presents and everything, but it is still raining, still pouring. And I don't know if the gym is open, so I don't want to drive all the way to the gym. And so sometimes you got to go out in less than ideal conditions. And, you know, these are the moments I always like to ask, how bad do you want it? And also to be in the position where you just need to mentally prepare to, you know, be in training situations that aren't ideal. It might be cold, it might be rainy, it might not be, you know, the most perfect training situations, but in an ultramarathon, it's not always going to be the perfect situations out there, and you have to learn to manage and roll with the dice, and that's what we're doing today. Also, all day this week on the roads, I've been wearing the Mount Coast R1s, which have been the road shoe of choice, which have been amazing. But since it's probably wet and slippy outside, I'm actually going to go with the Mount Coast H1s, which is a hybrid road to trail shoe, but since we're doing all the roads today, I mean, first of all, this is super comfy on the road. So crazy how comfy these are on the road. Just to get that extra traction in case it's a little slippy out there. And also, so my in-laws, whose house I'm at right now, we do a tradition where Santa leaves out some unwrapped gifts in the morning. We have like tons of wrapped gifts, but I see that Santa came and with me. Nice little surprise here. Look at that. That is a Raid belt. It's awesome. I've heard a lot of great things about them. I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard a lot of great things about it, and I'll likely be wearing that at Western States, and if I get into bad water, hopefully, fingers crossed. I don't want to give it a spin yet, because technically Christmas morning hasn't happened yet. Probably give that a go in next week's training and see how it feels. And yeah, super excited. So I'm going to eat a bagel, take some caffeine, get out for this rainy run. What do we have on tap today? Again, just a very, very easy hour and a half, nothing to it. Again, in the spirit of the deload week, in the spirit of the recovery week, it is all about easy and not pushing it. And that's what we're doing today. So we're going to have holly jolly Christmas. I'm going to listen to Christmas music the entire time. And it is going to be holly jolly. Let's go.
All right, so I wasn't going to share this, but I couldn't resist, so here we are. It is pouring rain outside, and I went to go do my run today. And I looked at the weather, and I saw that there was rain in the forecast. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go on the treadmill today. It's rainy. I don't feel like getting wet. Let's just go to the treadmill. And then I thought about it, and I said, you know what? What if on race day, the race that I'm training for, it ends up being crazy rain? It ends up being cold. It ends up being whatever a weather obstacle throws out at me. Am I just gonna not show up to the race? No. You're gonna go out there and you're gonna race anyways. And so, assuming that there's no super dangerous conditions where you're gonna get hurt, right? If it's raining outside, if it's snowing outside, if it's cold outside, sometimes you just gotta get out there and get it done. And I don't mean just from a discipline perspective, but you're teaching your brain that no matter what the day throws at you in terms of weather, conditions, anything, you're gonna be ready. And bonus points if you do it with a smile too. Use it as mental training. Don't let that excuse get in your way. Of course, be safe, but get out there and play in the rain, baby. Let's go. It is Saturday. What day is it? December 27th. It always gets a whirl around the holidays, but Saturday after Christmas, December 27th. Coming to the end of the deload week, and this is our long run. So just to kind of recap some of the principles for a deload week, right? We want to have, anywhere between 20 to 40% volume reduction in our week that we did our highest building into the deload. And our long run, we want to take about the same. We want it to be about 20 to 30% less than what our longest run has been lately. So if we're thinking about that, right, just doing the math on here, right, our longest run, we'll call it like 3 hours and 15 minutes. If we take 80% of that, we're getting, well, 75% more likely. 75% of that, we are doing 2.5 hours today, super easy. So kind of following that same principle, 25% shorter than our longest long run of the block so far. So I'm gonna take it easy. Again, remember, the number one intention in the deload week is to recover, rejuvenate, let those adaptations sink in. It's one of those things where don't push it. Don't go a little bit harder, right? If anything, take it a little bit easier. Just stroll, take it nice and casual, and that's all we're doing today. And it is beautiful, finally. It's been a very, very rainy week here in SoCal. But look at that, like barely clouds in the sky. Actually, some clouds over there. I would have loved to go out for the trails today, but I bet they're an absolute mess and super muddy. And this is also another good reminder too, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, what if the trail conditions are so crappy that I can't even get like some good running in? Earlier in the training block, again, the most important thing is just general fitness. And if you are not racing a race that has like super specific mud or anything that's such too, which Western States usually doesn't have, then you don't necessarily need to get super specific with that. And if it's gonna prevent you from getting very, very preventative of like actual fitness building, which like if you think about ever running in the mud, right? Sometimes you can't get a good stride. You can't get your heart rate up. You can't, get into that aerobic zone because you're too busy like being careful and moving around. You're robbing yourself of the actual fitness benefits that you're getting from that session. So again, like we don't have to be too specific with hills, trails, anything this early on in the block to Western States. Anyways, let's get it started. Watch it started. We are on this deload week long run. Let's go, baby. 4 miles in, feeling really good, just chilling. The sign that you know a deload week is working really well is when you see your paces at the same RPE increase. So for example, right now I'm running at like a 2 RPE. Super easy, nice recovery run, which usually if you looked at like my last few recovery runs, I was clocking like a 9:30 average pace. And right now I'm at 8:44. That's a good sign. If you're in your deload weeks and you see that your paces are not moving, maybe you're not feeling recovered, it might just mean you might need to take a little bit more off the top when it comes to volume or long run size or intensity, or you need to adjust the other areas of your life to make sure those recovery benefits start to stick. Because I mean, you can have a deload week, but if you sleep like crap, eat like crap, and not take care of yourself, those benefits might not be materializing as well. So right now all systems are showing the deload week is working, and I call it deload magic. And I always tell people, hey, if you feel like you're not making progress in training, wait till that deload week, because usually that's where progress starts to show a ton. So we got that deload week magic going, baby, and we're getting stoked on that. Power deloads, don't skip them. All right, let's keep charging on this run. Feeling good, just nice and steady. Nothing to it, baby. Cruise on. We're getting ready for a really crazy week next week. There's also a surprise coming that I haven't shared with anyone of what I'm doing on Monday, so stay tuned. All right, long run is done, but I messed up. It says 2 hours and about 10 minutes, 15 miles, but I think it's actually more like 16 and a half with about 2 hours and 20 minutes because there's a lot of stoplights on the route. And I know I paused my watch at stoplights. The reason for that is because I like to track my moving time on my watch and see what my paces are, okay? I was at a stoplight and I forgot to unpause my watch for about 1.5 miles, approximately 16.5 miles, 2 hours and 25 minutes. Felt really good. I mean, pace was 8:36. That's great. Again, that's like almost like a full minute per mile faster than what my recovery pace was last week. So we're clicking, like things are back in motion. I'm finally feeling like back to normal in terms of like where I was at, like, you know, the height of the fitness going into this block. And the best part is it's only going to get better because now we're getting into the real training as it starts next week. Gonna chill, gonna get a little frustrated about not clocking the full run on my watch, but it is what it is. And then we're gonna hang out with the fam last day in California, and then tomorrow we go back to Arizona and we start training hard, baby. Let's go. All right, back in Phoenix for Sunday of this recovery week. We are doing something big tomorrow, by the way, and Monday, which will not be revealed in this video, revealed in the next video, but to cap off the deload week, to plan for something unexpectedly big tomorrow, and also to have the spirit of the deload week, we are just going on a very, very, very easy RPE light 2 recovery run for just an hour. So just an hour shakeout to cap off this deload week. So super easy, just gonna shake it out. Let's go. It's always good to shake out the legs after being in the car for a long period of time. So that's what we're doing today. Let's go, baby. Feeling nice and recharged, ready to take on a big week ahead. All right, and that's a wrap on the deload week. We are done. About 64 miles total, cut back from a volume and intensity on the last week, but that's as expected. Getting done, probably the most impactful week of training to let all those adaptations sink in. And stay tuned because now we're getting serious. We got a surprise run tomorrow, which I'm super, super stoked about. It's gonna be interesting to see how it all plays out, but also we're gonna get into some speed workouts next week. And I'm not just talking about the workouts that we've been doing the past few weeks. These are gonna be really, really fast, really intense, and one that gets often overlooked in ultra training. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you on the next week, and we'll talk real soon. Take care.